Hello, and welcome to the final chapter of Harvest Moon. Chapter 31. Good news. Anne, Jeff, Maggie and Greg lazed over a late breakfast of croissant, strawberry jam, tea and coffee. They were just starting to clear the table when Greg's phone rang. "Excuse me," he said as he disappeared into the bedroom, saying, "Yes, Harry." The others carried on clearing up and washing the dishes. You timed that well. We finished the dishes," laughed Jeff when Greg finally emerged with a large grin on his face. "Sorry," he said, "but at least it was good news." They all looked at him expectantly. Looking straight at Maggie, he said, "The deal is signed and sealed. You had better start looking for your new house." Maggie hugged him. "Maybe now you can tell us what it is you've bought." "Well, Maggie, I can finally reveal that it was you who gave me the idea." "How come?" "Remember those crisps I saw in your house, the ones with low fat and salt content? The ones you buy for Alfie and Jack?" "Happy Snaps," said Maggie. "Yep, you told me how good they were, so I bought the company." "Wow. The kids will love that." "Yes, the parent company is called Your Snacks. Most of the products they make are own brand snacks for supermarkets." "So where does that leave Millie?" "She's very excited. She's met Mark Dickinson, the current managing director. She gets on well with him and will be shadowing him from here on in, with the eventual view of taking over." "Oh, and what does Mark think about losing his job?" asked Anne. "That won't happen. He's a permanent fixture. I made that clear to him. Millie will need many years of experience. She will be the titular head and he will remain in a very senior position." "And what would your role be?" asked Jeff. "Well, I will continue to control the board and make any major decisions." He smiled. "But I am keen to step back and pursue other interests. Also, I need to get in some golf practice, and I need to improve my bridge." "I think you have the right idea, old boy," said Jeff as he winked at Maggie. Maggie rolled her eyes, but inside she was glowing with admiration for what Greg had achieved, and also at the thought of the other interests he wanted to pursue. Chapter 32. The Return to Bromley. Jeff, Anne, Greg and Maggie stood outside the cottage in Lyme. It was a beautiful sunny day with a rather stiff bracing breeze. "We'll do this again soon," said Anne. "And bring your golf clubs next time," said Jeff. They kissed goodbye and Maggie and Greg set off in her little car. There was much talk of the ramifications of the New Deal and how they would divide their time between England and Canada, and where they would buy the new house and what kind of house it would be. At one point, Greg said, "Maggie, I'm going back to Toronto in 2 days' time. Do you think you could manage a trip up to London before I go?" "I expect I could." "I would like to buy you a ring. And before you say anything, it's just a ring. There's no pressure." He cocked his head to one side and said, "I just like the idea of you wearing my ring." "So do I," laughed Maggie. "But it makes us sound like a couple of teenagers." "As a matter of fact, I feel like a teenager." They grinned at each other. That night in bed, they were just about to fall asleep when Maggie said, "Greg, I have a couple of questions." Well, you know this ring?" "Yes." "Well, could it be an engagement ring?" Maggie felt the shock reaction that went through him. Suddenly, very awake, he turned to face her. "Yes, it could," he said slowly. "In that case," said Maggie, choking with emotion, "Greg Tandy, will you marry me?" "Babe," he said, "yes, yes and yes. Nothing would give me greater pleasure. He hugged her, and pulling back, they smiled broadly at each other, their eyes brimming with tears. Chapter 33, Loose Ends. Jasper and his wife Grace gave birth to twin boys. They named them Oliver and Emil. Greg loves being a granddad, but admits he doesn't get to spend enough time with them. Jasper sold his share of the law company, Tandy and Tandy, to his cousin Simon. He went to work for Total Snacks with a view to taking over from his father. Michael Spiegel agreed to go quietly rather than have his misdemeanours plastered all over the newspapers. Vera Tandy checked into a rehabilitation clinic. She quickly recovered from her stress and began a relationship with one of the psychiatrists, Norman Bedell. Maggie and Greg got married at a private ceremony in Bromley. It was a joyous occasion. Vera played the Beethoven Romance in F major for violin to get the proceedings underway. Afterwards, Millie, accompanied by Tori, sang a medley of tunes beginning with Only Have Eyes for You. Maggie and Greg did a little rehearsed jive to the tune of American Pie. Tori's little girl had blue eyes and blonde hair and was named Elizabeth Margaret and was known as Beth. Tori's husband, Peter, invited his old Cambridge roommate, Angus McIntyre, for a weekend break. Angus is a junior cabinet minister. He and Millie are getting close. After many years of little communication, Greg was reunited with his mother, Ingrid Peterson, who had returned to her native Sweden years earlier after divorcing Greg's father. Greg bought a magnificent 10-bedroom mansion in Kent, and the whole family frequently meet up there. The kids call it Tandy Towers. Maggie kept her little house as a retreat, but used it so infrequently that she's now thinking of selling it. Greg has had bridge lessons, and he and Maggie are now formidable opponents for Anne and Jeff. James and Alison got married a month after Maggie and Greg. Alison is pregnant. Greg gave Maggie a wedding ring engraved with the words, "Whatever died was not mixed equally." Maggie wrote a note for her new husband. It said, "We will be remembered not for our talents, but for the decisions we made. Marrying you was the best decision I ever made." Thank you for listening. Making these videos of my stories and poems has been tremendously interesting and great fun for me and my brother. My brother Derek is behind the camera and takes care of all things technical. Together we've learned a lot, and of course there's still masses to learn. So we will keep going and hope that you will stay with us. Thank you for watching. See you soon. Bye.